Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Development Committee, Thursday, the 14th of May. I'm Councillor MacDonald, and I will be chairing the Development Committee today. I'd like to introduce the officers that sit up here. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Nicola Swan, Legal Advisor to your committee today.
Good morning, Jeff Lyon, Development Manager.
Jamie Smith, Planning Officer.
Lauren Gregory, Democratic Services.
Imogen Mole, Senior Landscape Officer.
And David Gleeson, Assistant Director for Planning.
I don't expect to be a break today, but if we're still going at 11 o'clock, there might be a break. And can I remind members to switch off their mobile phones and devices? The members of that are going to speak come up to the bit at the end here when it's time for them to speak, and they will have 3 minutes to speak. We're not expecting any fire alarms. If the fire alarm sounds, please follow the officers through the marked exits to the front. And can we get apologies, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence were received from Councillor Paul Heinrich, Councillor Andrew Brown, Councillor John Toy, Councillor Liz Vickers, and Councillor Adam Varley. And if I may, with the next item, Chairman, there are no substitutes present.
Thank you. Can we approve the minutes from the last meeting from the 16th of April? Does anybody have any issues? Councillor Hankin. I apologise. Does anybody have any objections to anything in it? No? Okay, did anybody second? Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Do we have any items of urgent business?
None.
Thank you. The orders of business is as detailed on the agenda. Do we have any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Holiday.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I will be abstaining on 8 and 9 actually, because I am predetermined. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any others? We move on to item 8, which is Blakeney PO 252837. Can we go through the presentation, please?
Morning, and thank you. Yeah, the application proposes a residential development of up to 30 dwellings on land to the west of Langham Road in Blakeney. The application is an outline form considering access only, where other matters such as appearance, layout, landscape and scale will be subject to future reserved matters applications. In terms of the site location, the site is located to the south of the A149 on the Coast Road and to the west of Langham Road. It is currently an agricultural field. The access will be to the south of Harbour Way. There's a public right-of-way to the south of the site. And to the west of the site is both a scheduled monument and a triple SI, which is the Wivertons Downs. In terms of the site itself, the principle of development is considered acceptable. The site is allocated through a newly adopted local plan in December 2025 and contains 12 criterions, which the application would adhere to. And these include, in summary, items such as open space, design, landscaping, drainage, access, and highway safety. In terms of the site context, I've got a series of photos starting at the south of Harbour Way, depending on if you're familiar or unfamiliar with the site. The site is walked along the south of Harbour Way, and I follow the site to the east, the south of the dwellings along Morstan Road, and then to the west along the border with the triple SI and the Wiverton Downs, just to give an idea of context to it. So the photo in front of us is looking south in the public right-of-way, where Harbour Way is in the forefront. We're now looking south along Langham Road, the approximately probably where the speed, the kind of the 60-mile speed limit is, sort of roughly where the access will be going through to the south of Harbour Way. And again, I've taken a photograph looking to the north. Again, this is Harbour Way here, and the access is coming in just to the south of Harbour Way. Further photograph looking east, adjacent to Harbour Way, where the access will be approximately around here, where the carriageway follows adjacent to. And again, looking northeast at the corner of the border of Harbour Way, development actually starts around here, so further down into the field. Here I'm standing at the rear of, I think it's Hetty Close. Yep, the rear of Hetty Close, adjacent, so looking north. Again, looking northeast across the field, Hetty Road or Hetty Close is to my right on the photograph. And here, just a point of reference, you can see that Bliss in the foreground here. Again, this is looking east to the kind of the dwellings, which are, I think they are Haywood Close. And again, looking north. So here is to the rear, a big sort of a boundary screening. So this is the rear of Pintail Drive, just in front of us. But to the left, it kind of corners round, and then you can see that some of the gardens or the rear dwellings are adjacent to the coast road. Again, northeast, you can see Bliss as a point of reference, and the rear properties along the rear of the coast road. I've turned again sort of northeast, and I believe this to be a bungalow along, or a single-storey dwelling along, I think it's Haywood Close to the east of the site. I've moved further up the field, around to the west, looking down. Bliss is just off to the left, you can't see, but these are the gardens or the dwellings and the rear gardens and boundaries towards the dwellings along the coast road. And again, I'm looking further east, you can see the church in the foreground. You can see obviously the dwellings, it's Haywood Close and on Harbour Way. Again, looking back further west, you can obviously, I think it's House on the Hill or Hill House. Bliss is a point of reference. Again, just, you know, understanding the topography and sort of the land levels of the site, they're undulating. And again, moving back towards the west of the site, this is Harbour Way. Access road will be coming in roughly around this position here and then banking off around the left, but this will be seen in some indicative site layouts further on. I've also walked along the coast road, and again, as a point of reference, we can see Bliss here, the yellow arrow. The dwellings will be behind the properties to the left here along, this is the coast road along the site frontage. So the buildings or the dwellings or the development will be to the rear of. In terms of the main issues for consideration, these are as follows, obviously on the screen. These are covered in pages 17 to 44 of your committee agenda. The application is considered local plan policy compliant. In summary, some of the highlights are 35% affordable housing provision, 10% biodiversity net gain, open space on and off site in accordance with our local plan requirements, and in the latter, secured through the Section 106. Other than the parish council, we had no statutory objections to the scheme, which include landscape, heritage and ecology officers. So the application is looking for access only. In terms of the access, we have a single point of access from Langham Road, and it's widened to 5 metres at the site assets, which this meets both the Norfolk County Council and the allocation requirements. There is a 2-metre footway connecting the access to Harbour Way, and relocation of the speed limit from 30 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour further south along Langham Road. There are no highways objections to the scheme on either access arrangements, visibility or highway safety. The proposal also proposes footway improvements along Kingsway, Saxlingham Road and Wiverton Road. So we can see Wiverton Road, Saxlingham Road and Kingsway. In terms of demonstrating what the site intends to do, we have an indicative site plan, and this responds to the allocation policy where the built form is concentrated within the lower northeastern portion of the site, including the SUDS. And the SUDS is here, and the lower northeast portion with landscaping and boundary screening surrounding the site. In terms of the parameters plan, this is indicative of building heights, which are to reflect both the topography of the site and the natural land level changes, having regards to both neighbouring dwellings surrounding the site, coastal views. So for example, we've got 1 and 1.5 story dwellings proposed to both the north, respective of neighbouring properties, and to the south of the site, having regard to overlooking and that's the highest part of the site. So in terms of visibility and landscape impact. In terms of the landscaping plan, this responds to the policy criterions in the allocation policy. So the SUDS basin is located the lowest point, the northeast corner. There's landscaping to the eastern boundary to provide additional screening and additional landscaping buffers. We have public open space between the existing dwellings and then the proposed development, with landscaping also used for screening. Tree-lined access road with tree lines and landscaping to the south. Public open space along the western boundary, both to aid in the separation with the SSSI and the scheduled monument. Single-storey dwellings proposed to the north, and open space wrapping around the north and continuing to the west. The application has also been supported with an illustrative access road section. This provides an understanding of the relationship between the access road and Harbour Way. The section illustrates the carriageway, the swale, the footway, and the landscaping details, obviously indicating the relative heights adjacent to the neighbouring land. So what we have, for example, is we've got the carriageway a minimum of 9 metres away from the application boundary with the neighbouring Harbour Way, including a minimum of 3 metres away from the footway, with landscaping proposed at a minimum of 1.8 metres. In terms of flooding and drainage, this was obviously raised as coming through many of the representations as well. So the drainage strategy is policy compliant and is prepared in accordance with the SUDS hierarchy, proposing infiltration basins, infiltration crates, swales, and permeable paving. That informally, the local flood authority considers the scheme acceptable, including the infiltration rates. I think also to add that the site is in flood zone 1, and it is low risk of flooding from all sources of flooding, all sources. The site is greenfield at the minute, obviously. So, and as and the SUDS essentially will slow down the water, store the water safely, and release it in a controlled manner, something obviously which the greenfield site at the minute wouldn't do. But as I said, it's not at risk of flooding. In terms of recommendation, the application is proposed for approval subject to 106, including affordable housing, education, library, fire hydrants, etc. It also includes on and off-site open space provision, monitoring fee. A legal agreement will also include open space, also include the new homes to be a principal resident restriction in accordance with the neighbourhood plan, Blakeney neighbourhood plan. And the applicant has also agreed to up to £10,000 for items to contribute to dog litter bins, provision of cycle racks, community notice board and benches in appropriate locations. The application is recommended for approval subject to the legal agreement and a raft of planning conditions seen in front of us, and delegated to the Assistant Director. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good presentation. Can we please have the Town Council Speaker, Rosemary through, please, at the microphone at the end. You got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Blakeney Parish Council strongly objects to this proposal. It is worth reminding the Development Committee that a few years ago, when North Norfolk District Council was looking for preferred sites for building, this field was considered and discounted based on landscaping and heritage harm. North Norfolk District Council decided to adopt land on the other side of Langham Road for their preferred site for the construction of 30 houses. That is still extant, so this proposal makes a total of 60 proposed new builds. Blakeney does not need and cannot sustain this level of development. Although the officer in her report describes Blakeney as a large growth town, we are not. We should not even be considered a large growth village following the closure of the doctor's surgery. Over recent years, development has led to a considerable number of new dwellings in Blakeney, and if these two sites go ahead, there will be about 100 additional properties in the village. As evidenced by the tens of objections, residents are concerned, and rightly so, about the level of development being allowed to take place. There are 720 homes in Blakeney now. These two developments would add an additional 14% with all the associated infrastructure requirements. There are 31 properties in Blakeney currently on Rightmove, some of which have been on the market for many months. Blakeney does not need more. 43% of homes are second or holiday homes, and that will be the face of this development, all changing the face of Blakeney for the longer term. Turning to the particular development, the Parish Council is concerned about the effect on infrastructure, for example, availability of appointments at the doctor's surgery, where employment opportunities will come from for the 19 market houses and 11 affordable, where the water and drainage systems really will cope, and the landscape implications are very considerable and harmful. Indeed, in their comments, Landscape acknowledged the adverse effect. Detailed plans are not available, that there will almost inevitably be overlooking and loss of privacy to houses on Worcester Road because of the way the land slopes. In short, the whole proposal runs counter to the Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan with its aim of ensuring sustainability of open spaces. There will be a detrimental visual impact for path users who at present enjoy views from the approach to Kettle Hill, and dark skies policies will be compromised by the addition of 30 new houses. Finally, the access road. This will be driven across a greenfield site within yards of properties in Harbour Way with associated noise, disturbance and dust. It emerges into Langham Road where traffic speeds badly. For all these reasons, the Development Committee is asked to reject the proposal, which would bring a level of building to the village which it does not need and which is not sustainable. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We've got an objecting speaker called Jane Armstrong. If you'd like to come up, you've got 3 minutes, please.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to say a few words. Firstly, I'm not objecting to the proposal in total, but I would like to point out that if the committee decides to approve the application, I think it's important that there should be pedestrian and cycle access via Morstan Road. In other words, I think the development should comply with criterion 5, one of the site-specific criteria which was stipulated and agreed for the site at the local plan. My reason for this is that both national and local policies encourage developments to facilitate active travel, i.e. cycling and walking. The access via Morstan Road is a natural route from the proposed housing to the village centre. Having this access means that I think there'd be a distinct advantage to using a bike for short trips rather than a car. Also, having access to Morstan Road, as well as to Langham Road, will help to integrate the development into the village network of paths and roads, rather than being just another housing estate with a single approach. Are there any arguments against this view, which I've looked at? Because this is one of the criterion that's in the local plan. Well, according to the officer's report, criterion 5, which is pedestrian and cycle access via Morstan Road, seems to be being dropped. And the officer's report seems to be the only public place where this has been mentioned. It states, and I quote, that highways have advised any form of access onto Morstan Road would attract an objection due to a combination of highway and pedestrian safety issues, the need for third-party land, and uncertainty over the deliverability. I'd also add that highways haven't reiterated this comment publicly, either on the application itself or during the local plan process. Now, I don't understand exactly what is meant by these three issues: safety issues, third-party land, and uncertainty over deliverability. But looking at them in turn, firstly, on safety, if it's felt that it's unsafe for cycles or pedestrians to join Morstan Road, I think a range of measures could be used to address it. For example, there could be a barrier on the path's exit to protect or slow exiting pedestrians. The footway could be widened by moving the curb outwards, which is something that's happened outside the Harper Hotel in Langham, just up the road, or importantly, adjusting the speed limit. And I'm sure everyone is aware that whilst Kelling, Cly, the Runtons, Weybourne, Stiffkey, Wells all have 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, Blakeney doesn't, at least not at the moment. These measures could also alleviate the concerns which the parish council have noted about people forcing their own exits onto Morstan Road. Secondly, on third-party land, there's not sure quite what it means, but there is room for footway along the south side of Morstan Road. There's adequate space between the road curb and the garden boundaries, although there has been some encroachment of private hedges onto public road. I'd just like to summarise. I'm asking the committee.
Your time's up, I'm
That's-
sorry. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
We got a supporting speaker, Mr. Page, William Page. Would you like to come up? You got 3 minutes? 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman and members, for the opportunity to address you this morning. My name is William Page and I'm the planning manager from Bidgen responsible for this scheme. And this proposal was evolved through both the local plan and planning application processes and has been informed by detailed and constructive engagement with officers, statutory consultees and the local community. And I would firstly like to acknowledge the considerable amount of work undertaken by officers in assessing this application before members today. The positive recommendation reflects that process and we fully support the officer's recommendation for approval. This proposal seeks outline planning permission for up to 30 homes on a site specifically allocated for residential development in the adopted North Norfolk local plan. Importantly, this is not a speculative proposal in the countryside. The principle of development on this site has already been established through the local plan examination process, where the site was found to be suitable by the council and the independent inspector. The application before you is therefore focused on ensuring that development responds appropriately to its landscape setting, neighbouring residents and identified housing needs. The scheme will deliver a policy compliant mix of homes, including 35% affordable housing, alongside a self-build plot and a range of smaller homes aimed at younger people looking to remain in the village, responding directly to identified housing need and feedback received for engagement with the parish council and local residents. As per the neighbourhood plan, all homes will be occupied as principal residences only, so this prevents them from being occupied as second homes, ensuring they support the permanent local community. Alongside housing, the scheme will deliver significant public benefits, including publicly accessible open space, a children's play area, and biodiversity net gain substantially in excess of the required 10%. The layout has been carefully designed to respond sensitively to the site's landscape setting. Development is focused towards the northeast of the site, adjacent to the existing built form and at the site's lowest point, while substantial landscape buffers and planting alongside the western edge will protect wider landscape views, whilst also retaining the area's dark skies for a sensitive lighting approach. Importantly, there are no objections from key statutory consultees, such as Norfolk County Highways, the lead local flood authority, Ecology, or Anglian Water. Financial contributions have also been agreed in principle, including towards education, libraries, coastal habitat mitigation, and local village improvements requested by the parish council. The proposal will also help support the long-term vitality of local facilities within the village, including its primary school. Ultimately, this is a policy-compliant allocated site, delivering much-needed homes, including affordable homes for local people, alongside other community benefits. And for those reasons, we respectfully invite members to support the officer's recommendation and grant outline planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've got local member, councillor Holiday. Would you like to speak?
Thank you very much, Chair. Access to and the principle of building 30 dwellings on this site are both inappropriate. The community objected to the inclusion of this allocation at the reconsultation of the new local plan. When previously assessed, this site allocation in Blakeney was considered unsuitable for development and discounted on grounds of landscape and heritage harm. These harms still pertain. Development of this site would lead to significant negative impacts on nearby European protected landscapes. Development of the site would have a material impact on the Norfolk Coast National Landscape, which we have a duty to protect. Just the access road itself will adversely affect the conservation and enhancement of the defined key qualities of this valued landscape. Development on this site could impact the setting within Blakeney Downs of a rare archaeological scheduled monument to unusual Bronze Age bowl barrows. The community still objects to this proposal. I make 61 objections covering highway safety, landscape harm, loss of amenity for neighbours, surface flooding and light pollution. There are also concerns regarding sewage processing. You say no statutory consultees objected, but Norfolk Coast Protected Landscape has concerns. Just the construction of the access road itself will adversely impact the residential amenity of residents of Harbour Way, contribute to increased surface water runoff, potentially cause increased light pollution through street lighting, and construction will possibly disturb irreplaceable heritage artefacts. The development is not close to the centre of the village, and the car will be the preferred mode of transport for short journeys. Is this considered sustainable? The number of vehicle movements proposed in the application seem very low. There are genuine concerns regarding overlooking. The proposed houses could be as close as 12 metres to existing properties on Morstan Road and very nearby to Haywoods and Oddfellows Close. I question whether surface water runoff to neighbouring houses has been thoroughly mitigated. There are widespread concerns regarding the processing of the additional sewage. We are told there is capacity within the network and to physically treat sewage at the receiving treatment works, but has the Environment Agency been consulted as to the resultant nutrient load? The receiving water body, the River Glaven, drains into the nationally renowned nature reserve of Blakeney Pit, leading to well-documented adverse impacts of nutrients on wildlife and vegetation. As far as the principle of development is concerned, I agree with the concerns of the Norfolk Coast Protected Landscape, the special qualities of the national landscape most at risk, which we have a duty to protect, are dark skies and wild areas. I welcome the principal residency restriction, and the affordable housing provision is a real public benefit, but the phrase of up to 30 affordable housing is worrying. I do not think this application conforms to new local plan policies ENV 1, 2 and 7 and CC 7 and 13 and Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan policies 6, 10 and 12. Should this application be approved, I would request the positioning of the 30-mile-per-hour limit is defined, a lighting plan is included, and an archaeological watching brief is placed on any construction. Prior to commencement, the following conditions: the capacity of the sewage network and receiving sewage treatment works should be scrutinised closely. Appropriate Section 106 contributions are made available to the parish. Principal residency is required. The proposed complement of affordable housing is built out. An archaeological watching brief is placed on any construction, including of the access road. Effective mitigation of surface water drainage is in place. Great attention is paid to any sources of light pollution. A habitat management and maintenance plan is put in place. An on-site habitat delivery is not watered down at the reserved matter stage. Without wanting to preempt approval, we need to make sure these are conditioned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Should we go to debate then? If anybody's wanting to speak. Councillor Hankin.
First of all, I would like to commend the officer in producing a very succinct report, highlighting the difficulties and how they have been overcome. However, I understand the view of the locals in that we're dealing with a very attractive coastal village with significant attractions in terms of biodiversity, etc. However, on page 26, I think the key factor is First of all, this is part of the local plan, and on page 26, we learn that there are the number of households on the council housing list, of which 135 of these are within the Blakeney area. So there's a need, a demonstrated need for housing, which is, in my view, an all-embracing situation. There are, however, two concerns I have, and that's the local objections have included this question of second homes. In the approval of this application and the selling of this, is it possible to have in some kind of covenant the fact that these will have to be residential for a period of time? Question one. Question two is what is meant by, I'll find the right question. It's on page 25. What is meant by the proposal has been assessed against the site-specific and is considered to be compliant with all requirements except criterion 5. And as such, while criteria 5 is not met, reasonable justification has been offered to depart from that criterion. Could we learn what that reasonable justification is?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, in terms of your first queries about the second homes, now this is captured in, so Blakeney Neighbourhood Plan has it's got so that all new homes should be a permanent residence. So this will be in perpetuity and be captured through the legal agreement if an approval is forthcoming. So that addresses that, hopefully.
It will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
And criteria 5 of the allocation policy, it required access to come off Morstan to Morstan Road. Now through all the way through the I guess the local plan procedure inspector, it wasn't raised by the Highways Authority that would become an issue. Now at pre-application stage, I say pre-application informal, before this application was submitted, the Highways Authority late in the stage raised an objection to any form of access coming from to the north due to, I guess it was, I wrote it down here. It was to do with a mixture of pedestrian safety, highway safety and third-party land, and actually been able to get the pathway essentially up to able to enable pedestrian access to. So they objected to any form of access. So the developers took that choice and said, well, we won't to avoid an objection coming through by trying to achieve something that's unachievable, we will retain the one access from Langham Road.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In that case, I will support this application.
So that's a proposal.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning. It's not often that I disagree with suggestions from our officers, but I really do not like this. Yes, we've heard that the market homes are to be primary residences. That is very, very important. What I think we're probably going to have to agree to this. However, thank you. However, any further reduction in affordable housing must be refused, and I'd like that made part of any approval. And I would like to highlight the fact that the Norfolk Coast Partnership have actually commented on this, because quite often they haven't been able to or feel that it's not important. But slowly, bit by bit, we are in danger of destroying a protected national landscape. Now, I'm not going to make any proposals this morning because I really do not like this, and I have huge sympathy and support for the local member.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chairman. The dark skies and the street lighting, is that to be considered now? Is that a consideration right now?
We've imposed a planning condition, so prior to installation, so all lighting will be agreed. So that will be subject to the next reserve matter stage. So any lighting will have to be agreed and submitted.
Same with glazing?
We haven't, well, this is an outline for access only, but we haven't imposed a glazing condition.
The trees on the boundary, what happens to the trees if there's some of them look like a hedge, and presumably somebody could enforce that coming down to 2 meters, could they, if it becomes a boundary feature, because you're only allowed your hedges to be a certain height? What happens to those?
I mean, so the tree survey submitted only detailed, well, the only thing to be removed as part of the scheme is to be part of the hedgerow to access the site along Langham Road. There's no other boundary treatments proposed for removal or amendments. They are to be retained throughout the scheme, and some, of course, will be likely to be in the ownership of adjacent properties.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to reiterate and thank everybody who's spoken this morning. I remember that when we were putting the land together for the new local plan, this was a highly debated area, and it was a very tricky one to proceed with. However, it was in the end agreed. I think it would be true to say that most of the pieces of land that we've put forward in this local plan are contentious. For one reason or another, we're being pushed to build far more houses than perhaps we want to build. But this piece of land has been put forward. I think the housing that's proposed on it is reasonable. As Councillor Hankins said, there are huge numbers of people wanting to live in the Blakeney area, and I would be happy to second the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Patterson wanted to respond to the last thing, and I never recognised him. Sorry, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Chair. Well, presumably because this is in the plan, the fallback position, if it goes to the inspectorate, we're not in the strongest position. We haven't had a sort of comment on that.
I mean, you're right. This site, although it's hard to hear for some people, this site is an allocated site in the local plan. So if we were to refuse permission for whatever reason, it went to the planning inspector, the inspector would give significant weight to the fact the site is an allocated site and would, as we've done as officers, go through the local plan policy requirements and make an assessment against that plan. So I would strongly advise against a refusal for those reasons, because we wouldn't be on a very we wouldn't have a strong position to refuse this absent the objections on various issues that have been raised in the report. So the only issue that has been raised is item 5 on the policy about the highway access, and you've heard the Highway Authority raised concerns about a pedestrian or any access onto Morstan Road, and that's the reason why the applicant didn't submit that access. So that's the only bit that isn't in compliance. The rest, we feel as officers, is in compliance with the policy. Thank you.
And that's the only bit I feel is missing, is access to the Morstan Road, and making a footpath to join the existing. Yeah, that feels like that is missing from this application. Thank you.
Councillor Toy.
Thank you. Right, I'm just going to ask some simple questions, but please stop me if they're not the right questions for this. Okay, sorry. Yeah, can I ask the question, how much will one of these houses cost on average, say,
3-bedroom family home. Is there a price? There must have been, to see if it's feasible or not.
Could the applicant come up and give us a ballpark figure on what an affordable price would be? Thank you.
Obviously, this is just an outline planning application, so it's still an early stage. Us, Pigeon, we're a land promoter primarily, so we may build the site out, but we might not. We might sell the land to a house builder to take it forwards and do the reserve matters application. So it's difficult for me to say, not working for a house builder, exactly how much the houses are going to cost. I wouldn't want to commit to a number.
Thank you. Thank you for coming back. Councillor Toy.
The reason for that question is that we're saying people need houses. It all depends on the cost of it. Councillor Holiday mentioned about some houses that have been on the market in Blakeney for some time. But I've had a quick look, and for example, Sowerby's, which I know deal with the upper end, but I also looked on Rightmove, who have the same dwellings. There was out of the 24, there was 5 that were over £1 million. So, yeah, on average, for North Norfolk, a house will be £282 to £355. So most of them will be well over the average. And on average, the period of selling is 3 to 5 months. So just to summarise that, I would question, I think this is a good idea. I will support it because we do need housing. So I think the objection on, well, people are not buying houses there, that's because of the price. They can't afford it. We need people that can afford housing. So I will support this scheme.
Thank you, councillor. Want to speak? No, yes, I can.
Just to pick up on a question about price, it's always down to market forces, so it's outside of the planning regime to manage prices. And obviously people who are trying to sell houses and people who are trying to buy houses, that's dependent on market conditions. The requirement for affordable housing is triggered because of policy that a specific minimum percentage must be provided. And that's what's being covered in the planning officer's report.
Anybody else got? No? Do you want? You go to vote, please, Lauren.
Okay, so I have a proposer and a seconder for approval subject to conditions. Councillor Beattie. Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Against.
Councillor Hankins. For. Councillor MacDonald.
For.
Councillor Neverway. Councillor Patterson.
For.
And Councillor Toy.
For.
That is 7 votes for, 1 against. The vote is carried.
Oh, votes carried. Thank you, everybody. So item 9 is a TPO at Witherton. We ready? Okay. Go
Thank you,
ahead.
Chair.
Thank you.
Hello, councillors. So the next item is to consider a tree preservation order at Long Furlong House, Long Furlong Cottage at Blakeney Long Lane. This is the site. We're just south of Blakeney on Blakeney Long Lane, and you can see the dwellings there with the green area indicating canopy cover. And you can see that Furlong Plantation was there at the tithe map times in the 1800s and the OS map in the 1900s. They're quite clearly shown, you know, as a sort of long-standing piece of woodland. And here it is today in the aerial map. You can see the dwellings within that canopy cover and quite an established woodland area around the plot. And this is the DEFRA map showing the areas that DEFRA have considered to be woodland. That little zigzag line on the top is a remnant orchard. And this is our TPO that we've come up with. So it comprises of two groups, one woodland area and two individual trees. There are a range of species, including sycamore, Monterey cypress, Scots pine, oak, beech, and some ornamental species in group 2, including snakebark maple, tulip tree, and strawberry tree. And here's some pictures of the site. You can see the maturity of the trees here, and these shots are in the woodland area. The Monterey cypress there on the right of the screen. And then some shots of the groups that have been planted by some of the residents there, sort of really indicating their long-term, you know, commitment to this land, and you know, the trees that have been planted, they're really highly valued feature. So then moving on, some pictures of the pond and the ornamental species and the remnants of that orchard there. And the order followed some works to remove a boundary hedgerow, which was in July of 2025. There was some debate whether you know, a hedgerow actually should be protected in a conservation area, which it is not. But when a hedgerow grows up to a scale of trees, and in this case there were mature trees within that hedgerow, it is in the Glaven Valley Conservation Area, and so we deemed a application would have been necessary for this works, and the order came about as part of this enforcement action. And one of the key points and that was raised by residents was the effect of this removal of the vegetation had on the dark skies and the light pollution now that sort of filtered across the site from the dwelling there at Long Furlong Cottage. And this is the proposed replacement planting, which we have said is acceptable. So a replacement hedgerow with a closed board fence, the property side, which you know, this proposal along with the TPO we consider concludes the enforcement action. So the unauthorised site works did result in the order. The Wigton Downs Triple SI are just north of this site, and it's important to maintain those dark skies, we feel. This site is quite a defined arboricultural feature, and we recommend that this order is confirmed.
Thank you. We've got no speakers other than the local member, Councillor Holiday.
Thank you. I just wanted to make 3 points. The benefit, I think the benefit of the trees that were felled was possibly not really picked up when a planning application was put in, and with them felled, there is considerable light pollution. And it wasn't really noted at the time of the application. 1 point, the felled trees seemed significantly more substantial than a hedge when I visited, and I think that also wasn't picked up, and that's another point that's been of worry. But most importantly, the trees that were felled managed to be felled even though they had a conservation order on them, and I think that's the real importance of this TPO, is to make sure that doesn't happen again. And hopefully it won't happen in other areas within the Glaven Valley. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patterson.
Can I propose the officers of opinion, please.
Yeah, councillor Fitch-Tiller.
Yeah, just a question. You mentioned close board fencing. Is there going to be any wildlife corridors in that?
I will check that point.
I think
They
you
should be.
make sure, can we
Yeah.
make that as a recommendation, please? Thank you.
Obviously.
Otherwise, I'm happy to second the officer's proposal.
Thank you, councillor. Anybody else? No, can we go to the vote then, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Batey,
For.
Councillor Fisher,
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett,
For.
Councillor Hankins, Councillor MacDonald,
Absolutely for.
Councillor Neville, Councillor Patterson,
For.
and Councillor Toy.
For.
That is unanimously for.
Oh, that's tough. So item number 10, development management performance update. Jeff.
Okay, just a brief update, page 49 of your agenda. So you've got the figures for February this year in terms of planning performance. So speed and quality 24-month decisions. Our speed is sort of being maintained at 97% determined within time for majors and 94 for non-majors. In terms of our appeal record, it's actually improved. It's down to 0% for majors. So effectively what that means is we've not had any major applications allowed to appeal contrary to our recommendations. The reason it's gone down to 0, I think if you imagine sort of a conveyor belt of decisions over 24 months, if you do get one allowed after 24 months, it drops off the list. So that has just dropped off the list from 24 months ago, which is why it's gone down to 0. So again, very good record at appeal. Page 51, you've got the list of section 106 obligations. See, there's 4 on the list, 2 of which have been completed and can be removed, and 2, I understand, drafts are circulating for those 106s. So Fiona is well and truly on top of our section 106 obligations. So happy to take any questions on those, Chair.
Any question?
Not a question, just to say keep up the good work.
Platinum.
Platinum service, Mr. Chairman.
Item 11, appeals.
Okay, item 11, there's not a lot to report in terms of progress. There are 14 live planning appeals at the moment. There's 5 enforcement appeals. It's been a fairly quiet month on the planning spectrum. We did have quite a few decisions from them, but we've not had any for a few weeks. So hopefully we'll get some of those decisions fairly soon. You probably see on the list there's a few that have been recently to committee. So there's a few appeals working through the system, and hopefully we'll see the output of those fairly soon.
Councillor Parson.
Disappointing to see replacement of 8 garage and storage sheds with 5 shipping containers.
All I would say is it is the right of an applicant to appeal a decision if they get a refusal, and they've chosen to use their right, and we'll see where it goes with the planning inspectorate.
So the use continues?
I mean, from an enforcement perspective, it's the usual practice that you wouldn't take enforcement action in terms of serving a notice when there's a live planning application awaiting determination. So take from that what you will, but yeah.
We're happy. Okay. No, there's nothing exclusion of the press or anything, is there not? So that concludes our meeting of today at